Yeah. I find we're Messiah Baruch Shem Seder Noshim. Now that's mamish the sarid, the little bit that's left over of Kedusha Samikdash is the union of Viber still. Right? Well, test carbon. The sarid, of what's left of Kedushas HaMikdash, is ben ish leishto. Zochu shchina shur b'neim. Lo zochu eish ochaltam. The mamish once lo zochu, when there's no shalom bayis, so it goes from hechraftias beisi v'saraftias heicholi v'glisim ben ha'umois. That's once there's no shalom bayis, then it's like eish, and then mamish, they split. Right? But of course, Zocha Shechina Shuri B'neim. Everyone knows, from the Tomer Dvora, right? On that the whole yesod of the Sefer is how a person should be manning himself, is conduct his affairs in line with the midas of Hakadosh Baruch Hu. So by the midah of Malchus, midah of Shechina, they says that the person's v'davak beishto. That's what's left, and that's the closest thing to what it means, to be davik in the Shechina. And that's what Rav Yosef said, right? That when his mother's approaching, ekame akum ekame Shechinta, and that's why that's the Seder Indian, right? That Chazal were koved the agadus of Churban Abayis in Maseches Gittin, right? The Navi says, "Bepish achem shulcha imchem." Right, because of your sins, I sent your mother away. That's the Shechina Kedusha. Kishagoy so goes to Shechina imayim. Right, Shechinta begalusa. That the aspect of Shechina, right? What we're davik to. That's the aspect of Elokus that's revealed on earth. Right, so that got severed off from that got cut off beside Koris. Right, v'nechasa nefesh ahi. So what's called kiviyachol, the cosmic nefesh, is the Shechina on earth. So just like Koris is to cut off the nefesh from Ruach and Neshama, so connected as the pure between the madrega called Shechina and that which is called Kutchabrichu, and the higher level which is called Eim Abanim, which are connected the cosmic Ruach and Neshama, Kayadua. And that's what it means. Echo Yosha Badar Yikros Rabas Yom Hoisa Ke Almana. So like Rashi says over there from Chazal, Ke Almana, not Almana Mamish, Elokisha Shenasa Baala LeMedina Sayam. Right, that there's this separation between us and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's not Mamish dead, right? But it's because an Almana is already Muteris L'Shuk, right? So it's only Ke Almana, we're not Muter L'Shuk. And that's and the Dimyan goes on and on. Everyone knows the Gemara in Yuma. Gedola tshuva shedoicha lo saseh shebatayra ve'ezu zeh machzir grushaso. Tshuva is docha the lav of machzir grushaso, because Hakadosh Baruch Hu says, the Gemara says it right there. Right, Hakadosh Hu sending us into Golus is like Gerushin, and once we're in Golus, Rachmana litzlan v'avaratem sham Elohim acherim. So it's like we were, Noise, another God, Chas v'Shalom, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Gedela Tshuva, Shedoche Lo Seh Shebatar, even though halachically it would be Kiviyachol Asur to go back to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Tshuva is Doche, Lo Seh Shebatar. So again, the showing that the ongoing equation, right, that Golus is beside Gerushin, right, which means that being in Beis HaMikdash is beside Nisuin. Right, so I apologize to the Rav that he's going to have to hear some things he heard yesterday. Right, but Beis Hashem, ain't Beis HaMedrash below Chiddush. Right, the Chazal tell us that L'asi Lavo. Right, it says in Yeshayahu, right, Nalo Beis Elokei Yaakov, that the Goyim were saying we're going to go up to Beis Elokei Yaakov. So why Elokei Yaakov, not Elokei Avram and Yitzchak? Lo Kavram Shekaro Har. Shenemar Bar Shemira. V'lo ki Yitzchak Shekaro Soda. Shenemar Veitzak Yitzchak Basula Suach Basada. El Yaakov Shekaro Bayis. Shenemar Ein Zeh Kim Beis Elokim. V'zeh Shara Shemayim. So, Bishlam, I understand why Avram Avinu called it a har, because it is a har. I understand why Yitzchak called it a soda, because it is a soda. L'chein tzion soda techarash, the Navi says. Right? Without a business, it's called a soda. Right? But Yaakov called it a bias. It was an empty lot. There weren't two stones on top of each other. Right? Because even the stones put on his head all became one. So, lo yasham, as we say in Ivrit, lo yasham even al even. Right? So why called it a bias? Why do you call it a bias? Adrabah, that's his godless. He called it a bias. And that's why Beis HaMikdash Shlishi is going to be called Al Shmo, because he was the first one called a bias when he was there. It was an open lot. Right? The thing is like this, right? That a har, you can walk away from. A soda, so it's a place where you do avoda, right? But you could go home, right? A bias you never leave, right? The pshat is a whole other hasaga of that the Gilui Elokus is something that we're supposed to live with. It's not supposed to be an experience like climbing a mountain. It's an experience. You reach a summit, right? And then you go back, so you had your high, pshuto kamashmo, high. You went up to a har, right? And it's not like work that you do, but then you could, there's the work that you do, and then there's your own life, right? Bias, right? Bias is the pshat, right? That this is your life, because even when a person is on the road, the bias is still his home, right? It's a matter of home. That the pshat is that our relationship with the Elokus, right, with Gili Elokus is supposed to be one like Ki'ish V'ishto, Beso Zu Ishto, right? That we're supposed to be constantly Davik Belokus, right? And if you ever, in a matzav that you're not feeling your Dvekus Belokus, it's like you're away from home, right? That's something that has to be, it has to bounce back, and you have to go back home, right? And that's the amazing thing that Lemai Huchasa, is that there's all the inyanim of Kodshim and all the inyanim of Taurus. All the cultural Taurus, right? So the Lemai Hilchasa, right? All these inyanim of these higher dimensions that aren't part of Chulin, right? But there's Tahara, and there's on top of that there's Kedusha. It's either for the Makam HaMikdash, right? You have to be Tahar in order to have Bias HaMikdash, Bia Daika, right? Dok, Bia Daika, Bia Mamish, right? Bias HaMikdash Mamish. Right, and then there's also that over there. There's kachim. So what's left of that, right? So lemai hilchasa, that if a person's tummy, right, it's legabi kedusha sazivug, that mitzad the tuma, the zivug is aser, and the zivug itself is called, right? The zivug itself is called kidushin, dasala al kuli alma kehegdesh, right? That that the bias down Yisrael that is right. That is the sarid of what's left of Kedushas HaMikdash, but it's also supposed to be the mashal of how basic Kedushas HaMikdash is to our lives, and how warped the world is that we don't have a Beis HaMikdash on earth, right? It's like a person that has no bias, right? Has no bias. I mean, Mela, you can understand that's the holy of Tisha B'Av as opposed to Shivas or B'Tammuz. On Shivas or B'Tammuz, Butla Atomid, right? The avoda stopped. Right, so the avoda already there wasn't since Shivas or B'Tammuz. Right, Tisha B'Av was Churban Habayis. It's a whole different bechina, right? Because Habayis is the opportunity, right, to do avoda, right? But that's not its only function, right? It's over there, v'shachanti b'soicham. Right, so there's a machlokas, the Rambam and the Ramban. Well, what is the ikar mitzvah of binyan hamikdash? Right, is it to make a makom for the Shechina, or is it a makom avoda? But whatever, as we explained another time, their whole machlokas was by the Mishkan in the Midbar, right? But the Rambam says, right, kishenichsu Yisrael arts nistal b'shalosh mitzvahs, right. Right, that limnos melech lachar zaro shamok. This was them as beis habchira shenemar u'leshichno sidrashu basar shama. Right, that the beis olamim, in its proper place, that over there is no machlokas between the Rambam and the Ramban. That the beis olam, when it was on a temporary basis, was a makam avoda that was only there temporarily, so it's in order to facilitate, right, the avoda of korbanos. But in its makam kavua, it's leshichno sidrashu basar shama. It's not midin vasuli mikdash. Right, it's midin l'shichno sidrashu basar shama. Right, it's the makam of the Shechina. Right, that's over there. It's a mekuyim, on a permanent basis. Right, that the Shechina shara b'Yisrael, and the relationship of the Shechina shara b'Yisrael is one of such. Right, like ki'ish v'isha, it's mamish dveikus mamish. Right, and it's as basic as marriage itself. So with this, you understand that the Rambam in his Sefer HaKedusha, right, he has two sets of halachas, right? He has the inyonei kashrus, shchita machos asurus, and he has hilchos isurei bia, right? So davar nifali is bonin, right? That everything that the Rambam was koilo in Sefer HaKedusha is spread over two parshas: Parsha Shmini, when none of an aviu were nifter, and Parshas Acharei Mos, achrei mos shnei bnei Aaron b'korvaso bnei Hashem vayamusu. So davar nifli is bone. Kashrus is in Parsha Shmini, right? And the and Isurei Bia is in Parshas Achrei Mos, right? Misas bnei Aaron and Achrei Mos shnei bnei Aaron. So davar nifla mode, right? That Moshe Rabbeinu tells Aaron that I know now that they're bigger than me and you. Bikrovai akadesh. Right, and of course, was going to demonstrate the awesomeness of Kedusha Mikdash. Someone's going to be, as it were, the human korban to demonstrate Moira Mikdash. And now I know, since they were chosen, they're bigger than me and you. Right? None of the Navi wanted to be integrated into the Kedusha. Right? They want to be Dovik Mamish. And since they did it the wrong way, they got their wish, and they were Mamish, living korbanos to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Bekrovai Akadesh, they were Nikrav to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Right? And that's Keneged Kashrus. Right? It was in that Parsha Kashrus. The food that you eat, that mamish, mamish becomes a part of you. That's what Gemara says in Brachos, that Bisman said we don't have a Mizbeach Kapara, Shulchano Shel Adam Mechaper Alav. Right? Even the food that you eat could be like a begetter carbon if you eat it L'Shem Shemayim, and that's what the Mesilas Yesharim writes. Anyone who's got finished actually got past Nikias. Right, in Mesilas Yesharim, right? Anyone's got past Nikias, right? Anyone's actually finished this. Zohar finished the Sefer. He beats up on you more and more. Like, he has you living on less and less and less. Like the famous, metaphor, the guy who kept on feeding his donkey. Less and less, then it dropped dead. Ribon Shem, I had it living on nothing, and you took it away from me, right? Right? Anyone who's gone through the Mesilas Yesharim, through all the madregas, he beats on you more and more. When you come to the final shar, Kedusha, everything flips. That achiloso kekarbonis, v'shtiyoso is kenesachim, right? When a person reaches madrega of Kedusha, I'd rather he should eat. Right, because the more he eats, that's like korbanos, right? And the more he drinks, that's like nesachim al gabi mizbeach. Right, besides kol maybe during the Talmud kilu hikriv bikurim, right? Because the person is living kedusha, right, and everything that he takes into himself is assimilated into the kedusha, is assimilated into malchus shamayim. That's what eating is. Korvani lachmi liishai, right, and that's what none of our viewers. They were consumed totally. They were consumed totally, by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right? like food that gets eaten. Right, in Parshas Achrei Mos, so HaKadosh Baruch Hu teaches us a way to reach the Kedusha without being nisbato. You don't have to lose yourself. You don't have to sacrifice everything. Bezos Yovo Aaron HaKadosh. There's a Seder. If you keep the Seder, you could attain Kedusha without losing it all. Right? You don't have to sacrifice everything in order. You don't have to be a shaheed. Right? You could get there, without being being makriv your sense of self. You could have both. Right, and in that parsha is the parsha of Arias, right? Of course, there's something in between. There's something in between, which is the parsha of Shchutei Chutz, right? That in the Dora Midbar, right, there was a halacha, right? That all the basar they ate had to be shlomim, right? They couldn't eat basar tava, right? And it's a davar niflamot because the Dora Midbar that was omed nochach pnei Hashem. Right, Nochach Pnei Hashem constantly, they didn't have a sense of their own space. Right, and that's why everything had to be, Begetter Shlomim. The parsha in Sefer Dvarim that opens up to be Matir Basar Tava opens up with Loshen Ki Yarchiv Hashem Elokecha Es Gvulcha Kasher Diber Loch. Right, there'll be territorial expansion, and then Vamarta Ochel Basar. Amazing thing. It opens up Ki Yarchiv Hashem Elokecha Es Gvulcha. Right? That in Eretz Yisrael you were granted a sense of your own space. You're on your own time, your own space, and therefore you could eat basar tava. Right in the midbar, they didn't have a sense of their own space. They were only constantly nochach pnei Hashem, nochach the Shechina, and that's why they had to eat whatever they ate. Begetter kachim. Right? Right, so I'll call upon it. Right, the feed their madrega of being always nochach pnei Hashem. Right, so they had to have shlomim, and after that comes the parsha of Arias, and this is a davar nifla. Right, the Gemara says in the Chagiga, right, Mishnah that we're not doshim ma'aser merkava b'yachid, and not ma'aser breshis b'shnayim, right, and not the Arias b'shlosha. Right, the Gemara says what Arias is soid Arias. Right, so the Maral explains in the first Hakdama to the Gvuras Hashem that the Indian of Arias is that the Olam Hazeh is set up in a maze, right, that the eye can't see. Right? And that's the Indian, Bezos Yavar Kodesh. There is a way to reach Kodesh HaKadoshim. If you go and you navigate through the maze the way you're supposed to, you could get to Dveikus Mamish without having to sacrifice everything that you are. I mean, you're just elevated, but you don't have to sacrifice it like none of Avihu, right? But you have to know how to navigate through that maze. The Indian of Isurei Arayas is this the halachic, metaphor for the fact that Olam Hazeh is set up in a maze in a way that the eye can't see, right? That this one you're mutter in, this one you're usher in, right? Even though the genetic match of this one and that one is not different. What's the difference between an ant and a niece? It's the same genetic difference. Right, the genetic deviation, right? But an ant is a kores, and with a niece it's dafka a mitzvah, right? V'chein hala, that the Indian of Arais is that there's a certain seder within the bria that if you know how to navigate that maze, right, you could get to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and you don't have to get hurt along the way. None of Avihu weren't willing, they didn't navigate the maze, right?
So also one of the reasons was that they wanted the solution. They didn't want to go that route.
That's correct. Nachomod. Of course. That is correct. Right? So the so now it goes the other way also, right? Bisman that the Shekhinah was nisgala, right, on earth, right, in the Beis Olamim. And that's the in of bias. The in of bias is, v'shachanti b'socham. It's a separate bechina bazunder, totally separate from the avodah of korbanos, right? And that's the big tragedy of Tisha B'av, and why Tisha B'av is so much more than Shivasa B'Tammuz. The avodah was batal in Shivasa B'Tammuz, but the bias, right, the relationship, right, that the Shechina went Shechinta B'Galusa, right? That's the in of Tisha B'av, right? That the Churban Habayis. Right, that the bias, the union between Klal and HaKadosh Baruch Hu was severed. But when that union was nizgale, right, when it was begolui, right, and which is the whole inyan of what the Beis HaMikdash is about. Yeroah kol schorcha es pnei Hashem Elokecha, right, come to see, right, and you bring in olas re'iyah. Avraham Avinu, when he consecrated the house, Har Hashem Yeroeh. Right? Everything's because the pshat is when the Beis HaMikdash was visible on earth. So this thing that we're talking about, that there's a maze in reality that science can't detect, you were able to see that when there's a Beis HaMikdash on earth. All right, because just like you saw the destination of the maze, you could see the maze along the way. All the truths, right, that the Torah teaches, when there's a Beis HaMikdash on earth, it wasn't theory. It was as real as anything that you could see. Ata besod, ata horesa lodas, you were shown to see. Ki Hashem hu Elokim. Right? It was mamish visible, and that's, you'll find that all the tefillas, right, and all the nevuas that talk about the future, all talk about b'lashon riyah. V'areinu Hashem Elokeinu b'nech b'sirecha, v'sechazenu einenu b'shuvcha l'tzion, right? Ve'einenu sirenu malchusecha. Ki ayin bayin yiru b'shuv Hashem. Ro kol basar yachtav ki pi Hashem diber, and it just goes on and on and on, right? That it's all b'lashon riyah. Right, to see, right, because ideas are communicated, by sound, right? Ideas are invisible. The problem with ideas is, as deep and as beautiful as they are, who says any of it's true? Seeing is believing, right? What's broken about the bria, right? What's broken, right, is that the truths of the Torah are all chas v'shalom, seemingly sound theoretical. Ze ata omer. Right, that's what you're saying. Who says any of this is real? And that's what's wrong, and that's what's broken. And that's in the ksavim of the Bar Hilula, Rabbeinu Ari, right? And it says that kayadua the shvira, whatever's broken was the shvira sakeim are the uris ha'einayim, the uris that came out of the einayim of Adam Kadmon. That's without getting into what it means to say a hezber lefi arkenu. It means that's what's broken about the world. It doesn't look in accordance with what we believe in. That's what's broken, right? And that's the whole tikkun is v'hareinu, right? We should see, right, that all the emunas and all the amkus, right, all the intimacy. All right, we talk about a bias, right? So the Pashtonim have already pointed out you're nichnas lebias. The term knisa, what does it mean, right? So that the Gemara says in Brachos that a mispal tzach sheyikanes shiur shnei psachim. Right, so the Maharal already explains, all the Chassidus from the old copies from the Maharal, right? That the pshat is that the first Pesach is to release the Gashmias, and the second Pesach is actually enter a higher dimension. Now, the term Kenisa doesn't mean to go indoors. The biblical word for going indoors is Va'asafto. Va'asafto al toch beisecha, by the parsha of Hashavas Aveda. Right? Knessos means to go to a higher dimension. And with that you can understand what it means. Kol knesia, shi l'shem shamayim, sofal iskayim. Knessia, is not just, it's an in-gathering for the purpose of a cause. It's not just I'm going indoors. It's for a cause. What? Right. Correct. Right. And at the Beis HaMikdash and at the Maharal, that Mishnah puts up a whole parallel of what the Beis HaMikdash is versus Migdal Bavel. Migdal Bavel was a Knessia Na'aseh Lanu Shem, but wasn't L'Shem Shamayim. They made a cause, right? But wasn't L'Shem, so it was Ein Sof Aliskayim. Lumat the Beis HaMikdash, right? Kol Makom Asher Az Kishmi L'Shakein Shmo Sham. And that's why that's a Knessia that you go into a higher dimension, but it's a higher dimension that's real, not contrived, not made up. It's not a made up ideal. It's real. It's real. That higher dimension is real. And when there's a Beis HaMikdash on earth, you're able to see that higher dimension. You're able to see, right? Liros is Pnei Adon Hashem. And that's why, the Gemara says in Baba Basra, when Hurdus killed out the Chachamim, right? So he asked Baba Ben Buta for a tshuva. Give me an eitzah to do a tikkun for what I did wrong. So, Iu kava oro shel olam, le'asak ba'oro shel olam. Right, you destroyed the oro shel olam, which is ki ner mitzvah Torah or, because you killed the chachamim. Le'asu ba'oro shel v'noroi lav goyim, v'norum lashon nahora. Right, and the Maharal point in the Kedusha Goros, and that Gemara says he invokes a Medrash Rabbah in Parshas Bereshis. Mehechon nivrei sa'ira. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu said Yehi or, what was the first place there was light? That from there it spread out all over. Mimokom HaMikdash. Right? Wherever the Medrash brings its raya, right? That so the basis is called Oroi Shel Olam, just like Torah is called Or. The pshat is like this, right? Right? That to go tifer will be magdim. We say in Ava Rabbah, which also doubles as birchas haTorah, if a person has a suffix, right? So we say Avinu Rachman, Amrachim, saying Bina Lahavin Ulhaskil. Lishmoa, Lilmo Lamed, Vishma Velasos Lakayim is called Samutecha. Right? Alright, so we already davened that we should understand. And that we should be Makayim mitzvahs. But then after that, we davened already. That you should understand. You should be Makayim mitzvahs. And we say, Vahar Einenu Besora Secha, Vidabek Libenu Mitzvah Secha. You said that already. Lavin Ohaskil, Lishmoa, Lilmo Lamed, Vishma Velasos Lakayim. What's Vahar Einenu Besora Secha, Vidabek Libenu Mitzvah Secha? Right? And the pshat is like this, right? You could understand what Torah says, but that's theory. That's law. That's legislated law. That huah dinam you could have legislated otherwise. The v'harei neinu b'sara secha v'dabek libenu b'mitzvah secha is the pshat that you see that it's reality. There's not just some legislated law that right now, Obamacare, repeal Obamacare. It could be like this, it could be like that, right? Huah dinami we could legislate otherwise. But what you see is what is. There's no two ways about it. Right? The higher einenu b'sara secha, v'dabek libenu mitzvah secha is a pshat that you understand that after you understand, but you're seeing it that this is the mitzias and there is no other way. That all the truths and all the emunas that the Torah teaches us, these aren't theories, right? This is what is, and that's what's conveyed in the sense of sight. That's what David Melch Davin, Gal Einai Va'abita Niflos Mitorah Secha. And the Medrash Rabbah says right there, the Melch was, the Medrash Shochatov, the Melch David HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I noticed just amazing things. Gal Einai Va'abita Niflos. It's not just the pshat, right? That to understand, but to mamish see that this is reality. And when the Beis Mikdash was on earth, people could see that all the truth of Torah, besod hareso ladas ki Hashem Elokim, you could see. Liros is Pnei Adon Hashem. You know that Yiddishkeit is not a theory. It's not a philosophy, right? It is. It is. And with that also you have a different perspective on halacha. You can view at halacha differently. That you understand that it's not just some legislated law, that huah dinami you could have legislated a little bit different, but this is the way it has to be. That halacha is not to be equated to the U.S. Constitution. It should be equated to the laws of physics. It is the only way it could be. It is what is. It is the natural law of beside istako boraiso bora alma. Right? When the Beis Mikdash was on earth, and you could see things that way. You could see things that way, and that's what we're missing, right? You were kadamri inchi. You were real with it. You were connected to it. Verastechli leolam, verastechli betzedek, verastechli beemuna v'yadatis Hashem. Right? That that the ultimately as ishus. The Beis Mikdash is called a bias. Beisol zu ishto ve'rastechli be'emuna v'yadatis Hashem v'odam yadas chava ishto. That emuna, that you know that it's got to be true, but you can't appreciate how. That's called erusin. You're committed. You're committed, even though you can't see. Like after erusin, the woman, she's asra kuliyama kehegdish, but she's not still mutar lebala. Because kala blo bracha surah kanida, there hasn't been nisuin yet. But then after that viyadat es Hashem, right? And that you are connected, and and the mile of yediyah over emuna is that you are totally understanding and you're integrated with it. You're not just committed to the idea, right? The idea is real to you. You're connected to it no less than you're connected to your own wife. Right? And that's the madriga that there was when Kashabais Omad Al Tila, right? And that and at that time when there was Gilui Shechina, all the truths of the Torah, right, were clear and apparent, right? And with Chorban Abayis, right? So with Chorban Abayis, right? So all this went behester upon him, right? And all that we're left with, seemingly, Ilulei Yishel Sarid, right? All we're left with is the halacha, right? Because halacha talks about, right, what is visible. Shorsh Nagach Sapara, right? You see what you're talking about, and you see what the issues are. There's nothing that's abstract about that. The halacha does not, address anything abstract. We try maybe to approach it in an abstract way in the lumdus, right? But you don't have to go into lumdus to understand halacha, right? Kayadua. Right? Adarabah, the biggest poskim, we're not the biggest lamdonim. It's not Adarabah. The biggest lamdonim have a hard time giving a final psak. Right? And that's written in the Zohar. Mishnah is miloshin shena, right? But so when we're in Golus, we're sleeping. It's a Zohar, right? Yeshno am echad yoshnu. When we're in Golus, we're asleep. Right, a person who's asleep, his eyes are closed. Right, the truths of the Torah have become hidden from us, and that's why this chachma is called chachmas hanister. Right, one of the Chassidus from asks the kasha. He doesn't understand why it's called chachmas hanister. If you're smart, you understand it, and if you're stupid, even nigla's nister. Right, so Nefesh Chaim says, the question is a klotz kasha. Right? Because the pshat is like this. Right? Chochmas HaNister deals with things that the eye can't see. That's why it's called Nister. Right? So now in a tkufa of ha'oras ponim, right? So the chiddush is that even things that the natural eye can't see are revealed. And during that time there's Ruach HaKodesh and Nevuah, there's Nevuah on earth, and we apprehend these ideas and we can be real with them. Right? During the Zman of the Churban, the Nevi'el lo matzu chazon. Right, we don't see the Nevi'im. The pasuk says, right, that Nevi'el lo matzu chazon with Chorban Abayis. Right, there's with the siluk hashchina. Shchina, it's out there, but we can't see it anymore. Shchita begalusa Nevi'el lo matzu chazon, and in that state, all the truths of the Torah, all the things that we believe in, right, it's an issue of belief. But we don't see it. We can't be real with it the same way as when the Bayis was saying that you can mamish see it. Right? So HaKadosh Baruch Hu did us a chesed. Right, that the last sarid of seeing the maze that we spoke about, right? Everything, seeing that kedusha is not a theory. Kedusha is as real as gashmis. Kedusha is as real as chol. Kedusha is as real as chol, but we can't see the kedusha. We see the chol. We don't see the kedusha. Right? The last sarid of it was the Sefer Azor. And that was the big chesed that Kodesh Baruch Hu did for us. That ba'omek hagolus, after the Chorban Abayis, they were mechaber the chibur of the Zohar, right? That was supposed to be the last sarid. And in a few places, the Ramchal writes that the Zohar is beside teva, right? It's like an ark, right? That bachutz, it's mayim soarim, right? The sitrach is running rampant, and in the Zohar, there's like a last remnant of what's called kedusha. Right? A person who wants to, eat l'shem shamayim and do everything. Talk about malad and nitzotzes and all these things like that. Your roadmap is in chochmas Kabbalah. Right? Your roadmap to view the world and to understand that everything is b'ashgacha pratis and everything is yotzei mishem shamayim. Right? Everything is Shmo Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Right? That's Nizgal and Chochmas Kabbalah. Right? But we only, because of Churbas, we only have it, Colossians, the Tikkun Zohar, Ba'orach Seichel, says the Tikkun Zohar. We have it in an intellectual way. We don't have it experientially. Right? But that's the last sarid that we have. That everything that was Nizgala with a Beis HaMikdash on earth, we have it intellectually in this Chochmah Niflav. Chochmah says Ba'orach Seichel. We have it intellectually. Right? But even after what was Nizgala and Nizor, and that's called the Teva, right? The last place you could run to have a srach of Kedusha, to see that everything is Ba'ashkocha Pratis, to see that everything that we talk about in Yiddishkeit is not a theory, it's real. To have a little bit of that perspective from an intellectual perspective. You won't be able to see it, right? Because we don't have Nevi'im anymore, but you'll have it intellectually. Right, that you'll understand that everything, that Shmo Yisbarach is Shoira and Shmo Yisbarach, everything is Yotzei Mishmo, everything is controlled by him, right? Right. The last, even that sarid of the Zohar, right? Even that, it gradually waned and waned that we were not able to be mefarish the Zohar, particularly the parts that talk about these very, very delicate inyanim, right? Of the tikkun, everything, kol ma'adam shmai l'tav. Everything is going towards tikkun. Even the setbacks are all for the tikkun. Eino milvado, right? Which the parts which are called the idras, and it's suffered the sniusa, right? We were detached from that until HaKadosh Baruch Hu B'Rav Rachamov sent us ir v'kadosh min shemaya, the Ariya Kodesh, right? That with what he was megala, we are able to now get back to and understand the tzfunus of the Zohar Kodesh, and we have at least, an achiza of what we lost with the Beis HaMikdash, that with the Beis HaMikdash was there experientially, that all Klal could get it, ish kfum madregoso, we at least have it intellectually, right? Intellectually, orach seichel mikoch the Baal Hilula, right? And it's not a mikra. Nothing's b'mikra in HaKadosh Baruch Hu's world, right? But it's not b'mikra that he died on Hay of, right? Kayadua of is the 5th month, Hod, right? It's first Netzach Hod, right? 5th month. And he died on Hay of Kaidua, Bechinas Hod Shebahod. That's what was reversed by Churban Bais. Vahodi. What?
Like is also Hod.
Correct. Right. Yichap. Very good. Correct. Right. That right. Right. That Vahodi Nefach Alai Lamashkas. Daniel says. Right. My Hod turned to destruction. Right. That that the restoration of a little bit of the hoid that got lost with Churban Abayis, right, was with the Bar Hilula, right, and because if we have no achiza in these madregas of kedusha, right, if we have no achiza in all these dimensions that got hidden away, right, and that's why it's called nistar, because now it's after you can't see it after the hester ponim is sholet. Right, you can see it when the Horus Purim is showing. If we have no connection to it, we're lost. We're finished. We've lost our connection to the idea of Kedusha. We've lost our connection to Varashem el Melech al Kol Haaretz, that everything is Be'etzem Eino Milvado. We've lost our connection. We've lost our lifeline. And that's what it means. Begin the Asin Yisrael, Limitam Bahai Lon Dechai, Diu Sefer Zohar, Ubein Yifkun Migalusa Barachame. Right, that Am Yisrael has to eat has to learn the Sefer Zohar, which is the Eitz HaChaim. With that, we'll get out of Golos Barachamim. Without Kabbalah, right, we are stuck in the box of Chulin, and we don't see another way. And Chulin, without Kedusha, seems normal, right? The roadmap to understand that there's more than what you see, right? Which you can't get that from halacha alone. Right, and now that after you have this, you see halacha in a new light. You see that halacha couldn't have been any other way. Right, our roadmap to understand that there is a beyond, there is a higher level to reality, and therefore we are so missing of a base. So you can't be real with what you're missing without having a Beis HaMikdash on earth. You can't be real with the fact that you're lacking if you don't have Chochmas HaKabbalah. Right, that makes you aware of the higher dimensions, and that the higher dimensions are just as real. The Kodesh is just as real as the Chol. And Mimela, since that a world without Kedusha, without a base is a blemished world, is only half a world. Right? It's a blemished world. You can't be real with that, right? Without Chochmas HaKabbalah. Right? And that's what Rashbi gave us with the Sefer Azor, right? Before the Golus became more extreme, right? And the Bari Lula gave us the Kalim, right, to understand the Sefer Azor. It should be said, right, that the Hasidim say that what is the Chiddush of Chasidus al Pnei the Ari. Right, so at least I don't know if all Hasidim agree on this, but the Pia Setzner in his Ksovim says that the Chasidus is coming to mamish be another step in the Geula, right? So as to make Kabbalah experiential again, because the Kabbalah of the Ari is all B'orach Seichel, like we said. That's our connection to what we're missing because of Chorbaz. We have an intellectual connection to it, right? And that's what the Ari gave us. Chassidus came to try to make an experiment to move us closer to the Orach Nevius, right? Should be get her Nevuah, get her experiential, and that's why, Emasei Ka'asimar, L'ksheya Futsu Mayonasecha Chutza, right? That's when, the tikkun will be complete, that everything that the Ari was megala to us, which keeps our lifeline. It keeps our lifeline to the dimensions of Kedusha that got sealed off to us because of Chorban Abayis. And we're really dead if we really don't think we're missing it. If we think life as it is today is normal, we're gone, right? We're finished, right? And so this Chochmas HaEmes, right? This Chochmas HaNister, it's megala to us what is Nister because of Chorban Abayis. This is our lifeline. That's why the Bar Hilula was Nifter at this time, Dafka. This was when he finished his life's work. This is our last connection, right, to what's beyond life as we know it since Chorban Abayis. Our last connection to what it was like before, right? And mikoch that's what it means. That mikoch the Hagia and Sefer Azor yifkun min galusa barachamim. Because if you want what's beyond, HaKadosh will give it to you. You don't. You don't want it, you won't get it. You think this is normal, you'll be stuck with it. Right? And that's the Indian of the Bari Lula, that this is what's going to get us out of the Golus. That this last what he gave us the Kelim to understand the Sefer Azor, to at least have Ba'orach Seichel, a connection to all the Madregas of Kedusha, all those Madregas that became sealed off to us, right, because of Chorban Abayis. Right, the Rosh should help. Right, we'll continue. What we do in this house. Right, learn Kisvei Ari. Right, Rosh should help. Right, that we should all be marbe throughout the world. Right, that when we understand, right, that we have to be real with the truths of the Torah. That you have to be as real with it as what you can see, and you'll ever get there through Chochmas HaKabbalah. When Am Yisrael at least comes to that realization that at least you need it, then Mashiach will come. B'meher b'yameinu. Chaim.
On the goal is also, yard side is also fifth night of Sukkot, night of Arash.